My name is Alex Caney. I'm here with LiveWell, Colorado, and I will be your moderator for today's webinar. I have a few housekeeping items to cover before we get started. First, we will be recording the webinar, and it will be available beginning tomorrow morning on the LiveWell Colorado website. To access the recording, simply visit livewellcolorado.org, visit the Toolbox, and select Webinars in the Toolbox menu. Second, we will have some time for Q&A at the end of the webinar. If possible, please let us know who your question is directed to when you ask it. To ask your question, simply type it into the Questions tab on your on-screen control panel. Now, I'd like to introduce our presenters for today, Leslie Levine with LiveWell Colorado and Wendy Peters-Muschetti.
Hi, this is Leslie, and welcome to everyone. We are very excited about the number of people who are joining us today and the diversity of the participants. We're also very excited to be launching this toolbox. We get a lot of questions related to the food system and what is happening in Colorado, what is happening around the country. And so this toolbox really serves as a go-to resource where we'll be collecting information, constantly updating this website. For those who I personally work with, I certainly will be directing you to this website as you have questions related to the food system. I'm happy to introduce Wendy Peters-Muschetti. She is certainly our food systems guru, and we've had the pleasure of working with her for quite some time at LiveWell, Colorado. Thank you, Wendy.
Hi, everyone. Good afternoon. This is Wendy. Thanks, Leslie. So my job today is, I think, pretty straightforward. I'm going to walk through the agenda, and then I'll actually be going live online to walk through the Food Systems Toolbox to just highlight several sections and areas of the toolbox with you guys today. So our agenda, as I said, is pretty straightforward. We want to just call out the types of resources that we have and will continue to update on the toolbox. And we will be doing live walkthrough through the website. After that, I'm just going to talk briefly around some of our ideas to keep the toolbox current and fresh, and to engage you all in keeping it current and fresh over the coming year and beyond. We actually do already have several topics identified and planned for the next several months for a monthly webinar series that I'd like to get those on your calendars. And then just obviously open it up and see if there's any immediate questions or comments about what we're doing. So I'm going to, bear with me everyone, I haven't done this before. I'm going to actually go onto the website to walk you through a few things. And you know, I think when we sent out the invitation for this webinar, I think we announced it as sort of, you know, the Food Systems Toolbox and what it is and how to use it. And I'm here to tell you that it's a website. So the how to use it piece, it's really not very complicated. It's a website. You scroll through it. There's a lot of information on it. So this isn't rocket science. There aren't a whole lot of tricks here. However, we thought that it would be pretty important to have a webinar like this to engage you all, really to just build awareness around this as a tool. To engage you all, build awareness, remind you that it's here. We want you to keep coming back to it. So this, I'm right here at the Toolbox site. So if you can see on your screen the URL at the top, ignore that. The URL that you can use, the direct URL to get here, is simply livewellcolorado.org/foodsystems. So www.livewellcolorado.org/foodsystems. You can also navigate to the toolbox if you're at LiveWell Colorado's homepage. You can go, they have a section that's called Take Charge, and you click on Take Charge and scroll down, and there's a button you can click on that says Learn More About Food Systems. So we try to make it as easy to remember as possible to get here. So, you know, as Leslie said, this toolbox is our first attempt at trying to put sort of in one very easy, navigable place, very current resources and case studies around a variety of food systems topics. And you'll see as I walk through some of these sections today that we selected these sections because we wanted to represent really a sort of systems view. We wanted to call out some resources that really did represent seed to table, from production to consumer side issues. But also we sort of categorize them around, as Leslie mentioned, what do we really get the most questions around? What do we really see? What do we hear people want their most technical assistance around? Or what also reflects really what a lot of communities across the state are really working on right now. And so this hopefully reflects what people are doing. So I'm just going to start flagging a few resources that we have here in the toolbox. It's probably pretty obvious by now since we've been staring at this, but the top, so the scrolling headers that have been flashing in front of our faces, these, as will all content, be updated fairly regularly. These are the kind of headlines, though, that we'd like to keep, it's very relevant. And so, for example, you'll see one on the Farm Bill. So, unfortunately, there's not a whole lot right now to say on the Farm Bill, so we've updated this to the best of our ability to discuss, sort of where it's at. There's been a 9-month extension on the Farm Bill. Once we get back into that conversation, that debate, we will keep these headlines very, very current. We will link to the most current analysis and research and advocacy opportunities about the Farm Bill. The rest of the headlines, what we'd like to use them, I think we have 5. I should know that by now. We'd like to really use these to point not only like this one to the HEAL library, back to some other LiveWell tools. So for example, this leads you back into a LiveWell Colorado tool called the HEAL library that is a library of model policies, resolutions, ordinances, and codes related to healthy eating, active living. So we want to use it to point back into other tools that we have or that maybe are on LiveWell's website. But we also want to use it to just call attention to other new, exciting Colorado efforts and projects and tools. So for example, this one would link you to the very fabulous new Farm to School Info Hub. And we'd like to call that out. It's only a few months old. It's a wonderful resource for all things farm to school. We also want to use it to call out new research or reports that we think really get at the intersection of why LiveWell is interested in this topic, and that's really around access to healthy food. How do we leverage our food system to promote access to healthy food for all Coloradans? So we saw this report, SNAP to Health, which looks at how the SNAP program can be used to increase access to healthy foods, was just a really relevant new report. And we will change it, as I said, on an ongoing basis. And then another one, Healthy Community Food Systems, is another Colorado nonprofit that has wonderful tools and toolkits on their website. And again, we want to use this to call attention to what are some of our other partners doing across the state. So that's just to flag those. If there are things moving around state policy or federal policy, namely the Farm Bill, this is where you go to keep it, to get sort of your most up-to-date update. So, so the other sections are all hopefully pretty clearly, pretty aptly named, so it's pretty clear what we're going to get out of each one. The food systems background section is where, actually, so this section looks like, all the sections kind of look the same. Because what we try to do is then just sort of start off with some definitions. So what are we talking about here anyway? What is a food system anyway? And then direct people immediately to if LiveWell already has, say, some recommendations or some reports or guides that really background about that certain topic, we want to direct people there right away, early on. And then we get into some more specific resources. So every section, just like this food systems background, has these where we've called out other models, other programs and projects from either from Colorado or from around the country. Every section will have this sort of subsection around reports, what are research, articles, guides around a certain topic. And then every section will also have this sort of tools and technical assistance resources. And what we've tried to do throughout is obviously prioritize Colorado-based projects for tools and technical assistance or reports. So we simply list them first, and then we go into other national examples that we think are very relevant. So the food systems background page, however, is a little bit different than the others because we sort of put everything in here right now that we just think is so comprehensive in nature that it probably cuts across all of the other sections of the toolbox. So this is where you go, for example, under the models. There's some municipalities. This is really increasing lately. It's quite a la mode for municipalities to do these food action plans. So we thought we'd put a few really current ones up there. They're very comprehensive in nature. They look at how municipalities really promote their entire food systems to increase access to healthy food. So we put a few examples. This also really highlights, I think, that this is not a completely comprehensive resource, the toolbox, and it's not really intended to be. Is that we're going to constantly try to strive for that balance of what are really new and interesting resources. One, like, is it from Colorado? We want to highlight it. Two, is it sort of new and interesting model from anywhere else in the country? But balance that with not sort of inundating people. If this just becomes a huge laundry list of everything, no one's going to use it, and it's going to become too much. So that is the food systems background. Sorry, I hope I'm not making people seasick with my moving back and forth here. So the Federal Farm Bill, this site here, this is the one that's a little bit not like the others. And just given where we're at right now, and actually this will probably stay here for the next several years, and how fundamental this is as federal policy and affecting all sort of food systems work, we thought it sort of deserved its own key section. So this is where we go. We think there's some really great background information here, some of these analysis, some of these reports on why is an organization like LiveWell Colorado interested in the Farm Bill anyway, and as a public health entity. And then there's a couple other resources here that we would love to update when we're able to that actually point directly to Farm Bill draft. So the Senate, for example, did actually pass the Farm Bill, and you can link directly to that version. And we will, of course, update these when we actually re-examine the Farm Bill debate in the next several months. There's one particular resource I'd like to flag here, is that there are a lot of organizations tracking the Farm Bill. Every single organization, of course, has a slant, and a bias and a perspective. But if there anyone out there that really likes to kind of geek out on Farm Bill funding and policy, this, for example, is one, the National Sustainable Agriculture Coalition, for example, that has weekly, they update their website and their blog weekly in terms of fiscal analysis. So if you want to really understand like the role of the current budget and the March 1st sequestration, and what does that have to do with the future of the Farm Bill and Farm Bill budget, go there. And I suggest you go there at like 10 in the morning after you've had coffee and breakfast and your brain is functioning, and you can read a lot about budget. So if you want to really understand how that Farm Bill may be moving forward, that's just one great example, and I'm sure there are others. We also link often to Food Research Action Center that does a lot of analysis, particularly around the Food Assistance Program, SNAP. So that's just one page. And then the other sections are obviously a little bit more focused and topical in nature. And I'm just going to kind of quickly go through each one so you just get a sense of what's there, so that when you have a question, you know what's there and can go back here and look for it. So Food and Agriculture Coalitions, again, we just kind of want to define it for you. What are we talking about? We link a lot to the Colorado Food Systems Advisory Council here. They have a website that has a very current, we hope, close to comprehensive inventory of what are the local food and agriculture coalitions across the state of Colorado, and what are they up to, and what's their contact information. So here, we just sort of focused on, well, what are some interesting resources that there's been a lot written about how to start your coalition, to keep it going. Here's where we actually start to get into some case studies. So as much as we possibly can, we wanted to pack each section with Colorado-based case studies. So here we have a couple of case studies here. There's a lot of local coalitions in the state, and they're growing every year, which is fabulous. So let's talk about how different communities approach this and sort of what their successes and challenges have been. And then, like all the other sections, again, we go into sort of reports, model programs, tools and technical assistance. Again, I'm just going to flag a couple things. These two right here, these good laws, good food resources, they're very current, they're very comprehensive. They're both based on pretty substantive national research about what's really been working for local food policy councils and other food coalitions. So again, we're going to keep these as current as possible. And hopefully this has been clear by now, but in terms of, I should probably just hit back, right, instead of scrolling through all of this. No? Okay, thank you. I'm sorry about all the scrolling back and forth. Please don't get seasick. But hopefully this has been clear, is that we not just sort of those scrolling headlines at the top here, but every section of this, we actually want to be adding content to this on a monthly basis. So every time we hear, if there's a great new case study from Colorado or a wonderful new resource, we want to get it up here. And I don't know about everyone else, probably similar to me, but I'm on about like 100 listservs, and it's hard to track. There's so much going on. It's fabulous. We're always inundated with information. So what we're trying to do is streamline that a little bit and kind of put what we think is the most relevant to these topics, to us here in Colorado, and keep them up here on this website and kind of ease that.
Wendy, if someone has some content to add to this webpage, who would they contact and how would they contact them?
Great question, Leslie. You contact me for now. So we have a slide at the end here that has Leslie's as well, and mine, my email and my phone number. So for now, if people have comments or questions or a resource or a suggested case study that they'd love to see up here, please email me. You'll get that at the end on our PowerPoint. We will be looking to how, at some point, we're going to move to having a few other little gadgets on here, and one of them probably will be like, hey, are we missing a resource, or do you have a suggested case study? Submit here. And so it'll be a little bit more formalized. But for now, I'm really happy to work with anyone on getting content updated on the site. So just to flag a few things about healthy food access. Again, it's a pretty substantive section. Again, what do we mean by healthy food access? And then how we've chosen to organize this for now is healthy food retail. We felt it was important to talk about actual physical access. So what are strategies and resources and case studies around how people are focusing on the physical access piece to healthy food retail. But then we also obviously think it's important to talk about critical programs that enable and encourage that access to healthy food retail. So this is where we put community food assistance, which are nonprofit food assistance programs like food banks and food pantries and congregate meal services and all of that, as well as federal food assistance programs. So just to quickly flag federal food assistance programs, because there's a lot here. Again, we thought it was important to kind of what the heck are we talking about anyway? Federal food assistance programs, as you can see, there are a lot. And there's a few here we actually even need to update already about meal programs for older adults. But we just thought, let's just kind of define all the different federal food assistance programs that we have and help you link to them, who manages these and operates these in the state of Colorado. And then like all sections, of course, gosh, is there some relevant research out there? Who's providing tools and technical assistance to bridge these, to use federal food assistance to really increase access to healthy food? So that is that page. The community food production, processing, and marketing. This is, again, so going back to my caveat of this is not sort of the end-all, be-all, we can't be everything to everybody type resource, is that Colorado agriculture is obviously very significant. It goes well beyond community food production. We have amazing resources in the state of Colorado for Colorado agriculture. We have an incredible land-grant university and an extension network, and we have a fabulous Colorado Department of Agriculture. So we decided, though, based, again, on sort of questions that we hear, technical assistance we're asked about, that there is a sort of niche focus on community food production, so smaller scale, neighborhood scale, community scale type food production, that there was sort of a need to put in one place some resources and guidance around some smaller scale food production type issues. So this is one, as I said, that on the production side, there's a lot going on. It's pretty beefy. We're hoping that as this grows, the processing and marketing sections can also grow in resources. They don't have quite as many as the production, obviously, right now. The marketing section will link you a lot to the Colorado Department of Agriculture, to their domestic marketing, Colorado Proud, Farm to Market website, Colorado Market Maker, fabulous resources like that. And the processing, I think as many people are aware, there's still a lot of need to focus on how we really promote processing of all shapes and sizes in Colorado. So we've tried to start to focus resources here on both community kitchens and sort of larger scale food hubs. And I just want to flag under production, since there's so much going on, we have sort of lots of mini, even subsections here. Is that, again, we start by sort of defining it, pointing you back to, are there existing LiveWell resources around this? Start there. And then we broke it down into community food production means a lot of different things. So we've thus far defined it as community gardens, backyard gardens, urban agriculture, food production on public lands, and land share programs. Again, these last two, food production on public lands and land share programs, I'll be very excited to see these grow in content. And there's a lot of exciting work that is and needs to happen in those areas. Not surprisingly, the other sections have a little more content to them. So I'll just show you sort of backyard gardens as an example. So each one of these then sort of pops out. We have case studies, Colorado-based only, case studies for each of these. And then again, if we have models, tools, we'll share them here. So bear with me as I figure out how to close this. I'm getting help. Oh, thanks. That was not that hard. So just to flag each of those sort of subsections in food production has their own pop out. And then the last one I'm going to talk about today to flag is the food and nutrition education. And for now, we have organized this into 3 sections: school-based nutrition education, community-based nutrition education, and food systems education. So to be totally honest, and this is pretty obvious when you dive in there, there's a lot of crossover right now between the school-based nutrition education and food systems education. We really thought, however, that food systems education deserves sort of its own call-out, since there are so many different programs that are community, both community and school-based, that take a very comprehensive view of nutrition education. And then community-based nutrition education focuses a lot on programs such as Share Our Strengths, Cooking Matters and Shopping Matters programs, community nutrition education programs out of Extension, programs like that. And then just to show you school-based nutrition education, again, you're going to see a lot of farm-to-school type resources in here. But we also we wanted to orient people first to the fairly new Colorado, the Comprehensive Health and Physical Education Standards. So we do talk about, when relevant, some state standards. And then as you'll see when you look at sort of the models and reports and tools, there's a lot that is very obviously food systems and nutrition focus and focus on school gardens and farm to school. So those are all of the sections. As I said, it's not rocket science. We just really wanted to force you all to sit down on a beautiful afternoon on Valentine's Day to take a look at this and to at least begin some awareness and education about what is here. The last section, I'm going to tease you, I guess, about this, is that community food assessments is by far the most substantive section on here. It has the most content, very developed, and I'm not going to talk about it because we are having a webinar number 2 on the Food Systems Toolbox in 2 weeks. And this will be on one of our last slides as well. But so on February 28th at 1 p.m., not 2 p.m. like today, but at 1 p.m. on the 28th, we will be spending probably longer than this even, actually, maybe even the full hour, really walking through the entire community food assessment section. There are a lot of tools and a lot of content, a lot of guidance built into this. So we kind of felt like it warranted a special focus. So just keep in mind, and if there's anyone you know in your community doing a community food assessment or interested in doing one, please encourage them to contact us and get on our registration list for that webinar on the 28th. So that's really all I wanted to do is kind of flag some of the sections, and I'm going to go back to my PowerPoint somehow magically. Thank you. So easy. So moving forward, I've said some of this already, obviously, in terms of just the basic content, so the resources, the tools, the reports, everything that's on there. We will be looking at this on monthly, and as we find things, updating them as we can. As I said, the sort of scrolling headlines, those will be updated all the time whenever there's anything really pressing to update people on. New case studies. Obviously, you probably saw this, but some of the sections already have case studies sort of built into them. Some of them don't. I'm wide open for suggestions. If you know if there's any case studies around some sections that we have gaps right now, we'd love to help tell some more folks' stories from across the state. And then, like I said, this is really just the beginning. This is clearly just a launch. There's other things we're going to be adding to do. We want to make this more user-friendly and more interesting. And again, I'm all ears on this, but just we're exploring other ways to keep this sort of interactive and fresh. And like, I know blogging is all the rage. Is there a way that we can encourage folks such as yourself to get on and blog about a certain issue? Would you be willing to submit brief essays or photo essays or video essays that we could post on here that really showcases what you're doing? You know, ask people to just say, hey, give me 100 words about what is a pressing issue in your community right now, and we post it. There's a lot of different things we could do. We'd like to hear what you would actually do and what you would like to read, but just so that we can, again, really have this be a place that's not only very current in terms of resources and tools and guidance, but also helps sort of help Coloradans share more of their stories about what they're doing and what's working and what's not working. And then the last one that I've already talked about is webinars. We're on one right now, and we're going to keep doing them. So except for this exception on February 28th, they will always be the second Thursdays from 1 to 2 p.m. So 2 weeks from now, February 28th, 1 o'clock, again, will be focused solely on the community food assessment section and the tools and guidance there. From there on out, and these will be throughout the year. I've only sort of scheduled through June, but these will be every month, second Thursday, 1 o'clock. So March 14th, so in a month, we will have a webinar on strengthening access to fresh, local, healthy foods through federal food assistance programs. And we will be hearing from both state and community partners to talk about 3 different food assistance programs. And one will be WIC, a Women, Infants, and Children program. One will be SNAP, formerly food stamps, specifically looking at the use of EBT SNAP benefits at farmers markets. And the third will be Senior Farmers Market Nutrition Program, or other efforts to promote nutrition, use of vouchers for older adults at farmers markets. So that should be fun. It'll be 1 o'clock and interesting, informative. And again, the speakers are all lined up to really talk about sort of their models and what can be learned from them for other communities and adopted. And then a month after that, April 11th, we'll be looking at strengthening access to local, fresh, local, healthy foods through community food assistance programs. So we'll be hearing from Produce for Pantries, a program here in Denver that's moving more fresh food, garden food, to food pantries. We will also be hearing from representatives from three of the 5 Colorado food banks to talk about both at a policy level, how they're looking at nutrition policies, but also programs that food banks are running to increase more local produce, whether from a market or grown themselves or grown through a partner through their food bank delivery systems. And then in May, we'll be looking at food systems education from a variety of perspectives, both sort of working within the existing curricula and also programs developed outside of state curriculum to really focus on not just nutrition but food systems education. And then we'll be looking in June at sort of this gardening to feed our neighborhoods, but we'll be hearing from both backyard gardening and community gardening efforts and how they try to keep those programs sustainable and how those efforts are really focused on feeding neighborhoods. So I am going to look and see if there's any questions. I see we have a couple of comments, and I want to see if we have any questions that we need to address.
Before we move on to our questions, and we have people that might need to head out to other meetings, I just want to visit our contact information again. You'll see on your screen right here all the different ways to get in touch with your presenters today, Wendy Peters-Muschetti and Leslie Levine. I'll leave that up for just one moment, and we do have quite a bit of time left for questions, so feel free to use your type in questions tab, and we will get to those in just a moment. We already have some comments coming in. We will be answering those here shortly, so feel free to answer those. Or, excuse me, feel free to submit your questions, and we will answer them here.
So thanks, folks, for looking. Some of these are,
We have both questions and comments coming in here. If you have offline questions, we're happy to follow up on those as well. Our first suggestion that we're getting here from one of our attendees is a suggestion about having gardening to feed our neighborhoods earlier in the spring rather than in June. Would either of our presenters like to chat a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
So this is Leslie. I can respond to that quickly. I think that this webinar will really help for those people who are planning for gardens in 2014. So to stimulate their planning, their conversations, their discussion with partners, as opposed to having an impact on those gardens that are already in process. So having a conversation even now probably could be, according to some of my garden experts that I refer to, is probably a little bit late. And so hopefully this June date will get people on an appropriate timeline to have a successful garden for the 2014 season.
Yes. And this is Wendy. I'll just add too is that we had so many competing webinar topics for this spring, and it was a hard process. We identified several that we thought really needed to happen this spring, and they just couldn't all happen. So I agree with you. I can tell.
So we still have plenty of time for questions to come in. While your questions are coming in, I'll just repeat that this webinar is being recorded and it will be posted on the LiveWell Colorado website. Just as a reminder, to access the webinar on our website, visit www.livewellcolorado.org. Visit the Toolbox and select Webinars in the Toolbox menu. So that will be available for you beginning tomorrow and available to share or for any people that couldn't attend today. Let's take another 1 minute for any other remaining questions to come in.
Thank you, everyone. I just want to say thanks, everyone, and contact me. I will go back to this. Get online. Contact me if you have additions or questions or comments at any point.
Thank you all so much for coming. See you next month.